Welcome, everyone, to another edition of an Industry in Transition podcast. I'm very pleased to have Jim Gold with me today. Jim, welcome, the CEO of Steward Partners.
Thank you, Tony. Great to be here.
Good to be here. Now, I understand you had a challenging morning, but I just want to prep this call by saying the power went out in my house, and I bathed in a bucket this morning. And I wouldn't do this for anybody, Jim. So I came here for you, literally a bucket. I'm sort of washed. Just, we can go from there, but that was my day already.
All right. Great way to kick off the call.
All right. So you and I talked a little bit, we occasionally talk about, how it's been such a challenging, last few months. But I'd love it to do it live and sort of here now it looks like we're coming at the end of it. Maybe you disagree or whatever. But just let's look at some of the challenges you faced, how you did them, and sort of what are you going to take out of this thing on the other end?
Yeah, great question. I think, like everyone else, this sort of came upon us all quickly. We were fortunate to have the backing of Raymond James and their technology platform. So we really log into Raymond James to what they call a virtual private network. Really proud of my team, and we put together the time and very quickly came up with a solution to have everyone work remotely. We were probably a week ahead of sort of the mandatory quarantine. And what we did, though, is listen, we're a partnership. We respect people's individual choice. We respect people's right to say, my market is not New York City or one of the other areas that was deeply affected. So we've never actually closed the offices. What we've said is, for your safety, we recommend you stay home. But if you choose to work in the office and you're comfortable with that, that's okay too. So we were ahead of the curve there. And I think, like everyone else, is just now looking at, as you said, feels like we're coming out the other side. I think Steward has a little bit of a unique challenge with offices across a pretty wide swath of geography. And one area seems to get better, and then the next area seems to get worse. So you're kind of playing a little bit of whack-a-mole there. But we'll have to all, no one knows the ultimate outcome here. So we'll have to keep our fingers crossed and just keep our eyes on it.
Well, that's interesting because no one does know what the ultimate outcome is, and I'm sure you read everything I write, religiously, but I've been always talking about what are the changes to our industry going to be, right, when we come out the other end. So this is a field test of something that no one would have had, the bravery to do. No one would have said, let's close down all of our offices for, 4 months and test out our technology, right? So, but that applies also to things like, real estate, right? So how necessary is real estate? What kind of questions are you maybe getting answered as a CEO and a sort of you're still a nimble company, or it's a young company. I have to remind everybody I'm a shareholder too, but I do think you guys are doing a good job with all this stuff. But what do you think some of the lessons are that you make, actually change the way you do business, going forward?
Yeah, so I think very short term, I think, the better advisors, the better teams, and I think ultimately the better organizations, you have to go through a process of, the natural immediate instinct is survival and surviving. And then you have to move on to, okay, how do you go from surviving to thriving? And so we've looked at it and said, we think there's a real M&A opportunity here. I think that there's going to be consolidation in the industry. Events like this have always stirred up consolidation. Steward is has multiple active conversations taking place as we speak, and early stages, but of course AdvisorHub will be the first to know at the appropriate time. So I think that's something we're looking at in the short term. As you mentioned, Tony, we're a newer company and most of our leases are long-term, so we don't have any leases coming up anytime soon. But I think over the next few years, and this is what the benefit of being a partnership is, what does the office of the future look like? And if you think about, if you go into a, say a high-end law firm, as the client, you kind of never leave the reception area. You're brought into a conference room, you're given a cup of coffee or a glass of water, and then the person seeing you comes to see you. And then there's a back area, which is clearly marked, employees only, don't go back here. So I wonder out loud, and we've talked to our partners about it. And again, this is a, years from now, longer term decision. But what is the interest on their part to continue coming in with 5-day-a-week regularity? And ultimately, what is our client's viewpoint on that? What is the client's viewpoint on going to a major city?
Well, they're using Zoom now, right? I mean,
correct.
You have these 80-year-old clients know how to use Zoom. Why are they going to drag their ass down to your office if they don't have to? I mean,
right.
I think there was an intention these are the same people who like to get the newspaper delivered on Sunday. They like it. But at the end of the day, if I could just do it on my phone and talk to you, and I don't have to put on a tie to come into the office, I think once we break that third wall down, they're used to it now. It's going to be hard to get Genie back in the bottom.
Oh, absolutely. And as you said, the use of Zoom, I mean, I look at recruiting and I can't count the number of recruits that I've now met for the first time via Zoom, where if I had suggested that 6 months ago, they would have hung up the phone on me.
No, you're right. It would not have been okay. So the things that we accept now is okay. And I guess that's my question, because, you've seen some of these calls, Marty, Cheryl, these other guys, they all feel kind of the same way. Like now we're doing it all on Zoom, and there's an acceptance because we have a problem. So people know there's an issue, right? So we're all trying to be accommodating. But we also know, I think Bicknell was the guy who said he had a recruit meeting and the recruit was like, a virtual home visit. And the recruit was happy because I didn't have to get on a plane. I go in the other room and play with my kids right after. You know what I mean? So there's that. And I don't know, some of that's going to change. I think there'll be, the jury's out on what parts of that are going to come back or not. But certainly as CEO, rather than you getting on a plane and having to fly everywhere, that's got to make you more efficient to be able to do it on just like this.
Sure, absolutely. But I think, listen, I think the human interaction is critically important. And I think the face-to-face and spending time with someone and having a cup of coffee or, breakfast, lunch, dinner, whatever the situation is. So I think people are doing it today, and I think it's here to stay. But I think just like the robo-advisor is never going to replace human advice, I don't think Zoom's going to replace human interaction in our industry. I think it's going to be a huge tool, and it's definitely part of the future. But I think human interaction is going to still be critically important.
But I think with that office of the future, I totally agree with that concept. And I think when you look at RIAs that are out on their own, they built these big ego barns. And look, I'm guilty of it too. In the firms that I started and everything, you wanted to look legitimate, so you wanted to have a nice office. And I think now there's again acceptance on the part of the clients that I can do this by Zoom. And so you really don't need the same sort of ego barn type of office to show everybody that you're there. You clear through Raymond James, everybody knows Raymond James, they're going to be there. So maybe that's part of it.
Yeah, time will tell. We'll see.
So in terms of, we will. So in terms of like lessons that you're going to take out of it, I know you have a new program, this affiliate model. Yeah. What has sort of the Corona crash stuff done? I'm just thinking that the technology stuff that's been put through this really hard test, a lot of this applies to that. You know what I mean? And then it should give you a lot of confidence, or should give people a lot of confidence that, this affiliate. So tell us a little bit about it and how some of the lessons learned may apply to that model.
Sure. Yeah, I think the lessons are similar. So I don't know that there's a real disparity between lessons in one model or the other. I think for us at Steward, the history of the firm has been a W-2 employee model. We build the office and the advisors come sit in our offices, which has been great. And that's really been up to a couple weeks ago how the whole firm was built. What we started seeing was missed opportunity with people who were either looking to have their own location, looking to run their own P&L, but said, geez, I would love to have the equity. I would love to have all the ongoing support you guys provide, but I want to do this on my own. I want to have my own P&L. I want to start my own LLC. And really up until the fall, we weren't able to accommodate that. So we spent the time to really learn about that space and how our model would be able to morph into that. So we rolled it out sort of late fall. And we're really excited to have the Plaza Group join us in St. Louis a couple weeks ago. And ultimately, as a great validation of the model, they are our single largest team to ever join us. It was almost $1.3 billion in assets and $6.3 million in revenue. And what's always critically important to us are terrific, terrific people. So we spent a year getting to know them. And again, when we first spoke with them and we shared at that time sort of the theory of this 1099 offering, the immediate reaction was, oh, it's great you're going to have that, because if you don't, we could never join you. So when we think about the world of Steward, I think it's fair to look backwards and say, you're a firm that's going to attract overwhelmingly sort of traditional big firm wirehouse type advisors. And that's absolutely been the case. I think the big change going forward is now we have a real competitive offering in the fully independent space for existing RIAs, for people at existing independent firms, where they're able to roll up into Steward and get access to all the things we provide. So we're very excited about that and looking forward to continued stories and success there.
And you mentioned there's an equity component there as well with the independent.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So what we do there is the transition package is a little bit different. There's some differences on the cash involved. There's clearly a difference in payout. We work on a custom P&L, and really the custom P&L on a net basis, we're looking at taking into consideration that they're taking on the local responsibility. They're signing a lease. They're running the office. So that has to have some value. So you have to have a payout structure that's reflective of that. But they get the exact same amount of equity, whether they're 1099 or W-2. The same exact terms, same exact share class. There's absolutely no difference on the equity side. But I think critically important is we're taking on the supervisory responsibility. Right? They're not now self-supervising. We're taking on the operational responsibility. And then they'll work with one of our divisional presidents and the local operations team and be a full steward, right? And get coaching and training and our seminars and the steward symposium. So they have the full access to all of that. So we're really excited about it. And we've had a real huge amount of interest in it so far.
That sounds like an incredible deal. I love the idea of keeping, the partnership part of that, because that's such an important, thing going forward. I guess, what I also want to know is, where do you think about some of the larger issues and how they might affect us? We have the societal issues on race and inclusion, things like that. And then we have these markets that are, all over the place. We have an election coming up. I'm going to see you, I'm sure, at our event. We're doing a virtual event in November. Yeah. And it's all going to be about this confluence of, a pandemic, an election, a very contested election, and the economy, which is right. The markets are crazy. So, what are you guys seeing with the societal unrest? Where do you see us going as a group?
Yeah, I think that you touch upon the markets first, Tony, as you said. I mean, listen, we're all pleased to see the markets recover. They're clearly very volatile, and any given day, whether it's medical news coming out in a negative or positive, whether it's social unrest, whether it's international trade agreements, you have the election going on, and I think the coronavirus sort of created this perfect storm of obviously a lot going on in the country, add in this pandemic, people are losing their jobs, there's real concern and unrest there. So I think the markets are going to figure it out, as they always do. I think there'll be plenty more volatility with positive news and 1,000-point up days, and then a negative shock and a 1,000-point down day. But to me, that only drives what we do. At the value of it is increased by that, because obviously, having been an advisor a long time ago and having been a national training officer at Smith Barney, we always talked about is, listen, clients, the best thing you could do for your clients is have them stay the course when it's the right decision. Don't panic sell. Remember, you're working off a plan and what have you. So I think that's always good advice, but clients don't need to talk to you as much when the market's going through the roof. Now is when they want to hear from you. Now they want to know that everything's okay, and they want to make sure
we're earning our pay.
Exactly.
Here's where we're earning our pay. And you and I have been through that, horrible 2008, 9, 10. That was, worse in a lot of ways to me.
Right.
But boy, it does, every time we go through something really, really bad, the stay of the course thing still turns out to be true. Had you jumped out before, which leads to the point that, there's value in the advisor relationship, because if you have an advisor, you tend to stick around. Even if the advisor's just saying, hey, you got to stick this out. I've seen this before.
Sure.
I mean, look.
I think at the end of the day, one of my favorite sayings, I sort of modify it. We've all heard the saying, adversity builds character. I think it actually reveals character. And I think that's why the better advisors and better teams tend to gather clients during this time, because they're taking good care of their clients. And then their clients talking to their friends saying, geez, I haven't heard anything from my advisor, and I called the office twice and the person won't return my call. So I think your character gets revealed in real times of adversity. And that's why people tend to gather market share during these environments.
Yeah, and the other thing, so when I just try to play this thread out a little bit, we've not done a good job on a bunch of levels, I think, with different, I'm writing another article about this, but one of the places we've not done well is with millennials. They love the new technology, the Zoom stuff. They've never really been in a bad market. They just think things go up. So now they've had this chance to make these different bets that haven't necessarily turned out well. So the future with millennials, I think, if we can get our arms around servicing them, I think is much better than it was 5 years ago.
Right. And I think what we've seen in the industry, and Steward certainly has benefited from this, is millennials and the generation sort of just above them, they actually prefer independence because they find it less restrictive, more common sense, the ability to do unique marketing and what have you in a sort of new world, more cutting edge, sort of tip of the spear environment than sort of the historical, maybe slower moving or slower to change environment.
Yeah, but that all brings us back in full circle to the Zoom stuff, and all that stuff is pro millennial. And I've got a little bit of a soapbox in terms of the way we build advisors traditionally and the way we've done it lately. When you and I started, you were able to have a lot of small accounts, and small accounts grew to big accounts. When we went, I was at a big firm, and I told everybody they couldn't open accounts this size. People were beside themselves. They're like, this client's been a client of mine for 30 years. She doesn't have a lot of money, but she's the assistant to the doctor that's got a lot of money. I'm not getting rid of this account. And some small accounts turned into big accounts. So when we try to diversify our industry and bring in more people of different genders and different races and backgrounds, it's very hard to source. If you have no social network, it's hard to source a $250,000 client. Where are you gonna, your friends in college don't have that kind of money, So I don't know how you started, but I was bothering my parents' friends for $10,000 a piece, and just built it from there, right? So
I was cold calling on Long Island. They're very receptive to cold calls.
We call all across the country. Well, half my accounts were in the Midwest, where at least they would talk to you,
Right.
So, but that's part of what to address going forward. And I wonder what part the independent world is going to have in that, because there's no real training programs and stuff like that. So, I feel like I need to make a call that we need to change the way we get people into the business, because you can't cold call anymore. Other firms are not letting you open these. How the hell do you build a book? How do you get more, how do you be more inclusive as a business? Unless I'm not saying you. Obviously, you start with small accounts, they'll grow, and you'll mature, and the business will mature natural. That's what it always was. So just if you have any thoughts on that topic.
Well, we're fortunate that with Raymond James, they actually have a terrific training program for new advisors. In particular, on the independent side, not surprisingly, if you're joining an independent branch, you're probably, you're joining a team, right? So you're going on to a team 99% of the time. Many times it's a person who's saying, hey, I'm bringing my son or daughter into the business to carry on my legacy, which is terrific. So we actually have that available to us. I think what they've done, which is smart, is that.
So you have access. I guess I want to clarify that. So if Raymond James is building up a training program, you have access to that pool of trainees if they want to go with you guys, or if you have succession issues and things like that, and you want to bring on.
No, what I was saying is if we identify a candidate.
Or they'll just train people you give them.
They provide all the training. They bring them down to, we used to bring them down to the home office. So it's very much a training program that helps them, nurtures them, and the tools and the resources. But I think it's a much better program is they're not hiring, hundreds or thousands of advisors a year and just hoping that they can keep 100 of them. They're hiring selectively. They're hiring almost always people going on to teams. Yeah. And we've put a number of people through the program. They love the program. They got a lot out of it. And we're actually also doing that now where we're allowing our administrative folks who aspire to become advisors are going through a program that Raymond James offers them as well. So we have 3 people in the program currently. Yeah.
Well, in my mind, that's the best path to success for any advisor today, is if you can put yourself on a team, that's a guaranteed future. And then you still got to earn it from there. But you have to acknowledge that it's different than when we started. Right. I want to get people out of here within 20, 25 minutes, Jim. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you wanted to talk about?
I do want to go back to diversity, Tony, because you mentioned it. I think it's something that we feel strongly about at Steward. So what I'd say is a couple of thoughts. If you look at the firm, and I share the story when we interviewed our current head of HR, who is a woman, she said to me, well, how serious are you about diversity? I said, we absolutely believe in diversity. And she said, okay, what does your management team look like? And I said, well, there's actually more women on the management team than there are men. And I said, and by the way, of the sort of 7, executive positions, 4 of them are held by women. So we have over 50% of our management team is diverse. Over 60% of all of our partners would be considered diverse. I think as an industry, as you said, we're not a new company, but we're a newer company. When you think about a firm that's going to grow from recruiting, what are you able to recruit from, right? If the industry is, single digits to low teens diverse, your firm is going to reflect that. We've actually done a really nice job there. But I think for Steward, what we're looking to do is I've already reached out to some former colleagues and folks in diversity. When I was a national training officer, I ran all the training for the diverse advisors at Smith Barney, and they used to have a ball teasing me about it because they used to say you don't represent us, but you're here to help us. So I think for us, we're looking to put together sort of a diversity task force and really look to say this has to be a generational change, right? I don't think it's prudent to say, hey, 20% or whatever the number is of people that are diverse in the industry, having a talent war and saying we're going to pull 3% from that other firm and now our number's 12. That's not a long-term solution in our minds. So I think the long-term solution is you go back to the days, and I started in 1995 in the industry, there were far less women in the industry at that time. There was obviously, a whole sea change, and there's a ton more to be done. But the industry today, from a diversity perspective, is much more diverse than it has been. But look, ultimately, every company should reflect society. And our industry doesn't reflect society from that perspective. And I think there's great opportunity. But I would think hopefully, too, is that people have to recognize that wealth management is a great industry. 99% of the people in wealth management are good people who care about their clients, who want to do a great job. But unfortunately, the 1% that don't, they make great movies and TV shows and made-for-TV specials. And so those are the only things you ever hear about. You hear about all the terrible things that go on in our industry. But I think the industry is filled with wonderful people, and we're excited to get this diversity task force up and running. And I think we have to go back to the message has to go back all the way to maybe, high school and mentoring and coaching and intern programs. And you bring people along that way. And I think creating an opportunity to say, look, this is a wonderful industry for people who want to help people, who want to build their own net worth by helping other people build their net worth. And it's an opportunity that is here for everyone. And that's a message that I think has to come out.
Capitalism doesn't work unless it includes everybody. It needs fuel. Everybody's got to think it's fair at its core, or it doesn't work. Right. And that's why my argument, it's going to come out today or tomorrow, Jim. It's that I appreciate, that senior management, we have to do that, look for people, but you need to increase the pool. So it's really a bottom up. And our industry is funny because you have a good job. I enjoy what I'm doing, but the plum job is to be a top producer. That's the best job, is to be the employee. If you can get that right, that's better than your job. You don't have the same hassles that you have, right? So we have to sort of increase that group. We have to figure out how to do that. All right. Well, look, I appreciate you being here, Jim.
No, it's great to spend time with you as always.
Yeah, we'll do it again, and good luck with the new platform, and let's follow up on it in a few months.
Absolutely.
All right,
thanks, Tony.
Talk to you.